It's a new day, it's a new dawn, and we've got an opportunity to give thanks and break bread. This is the brand new show hosted by the branding Connoisseur. Let's unpack this. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the history of branding, which is ironic because I just about passed my history GCSEs. Big up all the suffragettes and that. We live in a world where people work day in and day out and spend the majority of their wages on brands. Branding is somewhat ingrained in our culture as a civilization. The funny thing is, branding isn't even a modern day phenomenon. In fact, one could say branding is actually older than writing. Branding has been here for a very long time, a very, 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 very long time. So let's go into time travel like Doctor Who. So bear with me while I get my facts. In the early 1800s, companies that sold medicine patents and tobacco began branding their products. That's why we're finessed by companies like Neuromo today. Do you actually think there's a difference between medicine products and private label medicine products from Tesco? Like the strength of the pill or capsule aside, if you look at the ingredients of Sainsbury's medicine or branded medicine, you'll realize it's exactly the same. One's just got fancier packaging. Now, between the 1600s and 1800s, criminals were branded again, literally, as a form of punishment and identification. In Batman, I'm a Batman fan by the way. In Batman versus Superman, when Batman caught criminals that were rapists, pedophiles, or child abusers, he would brand them in the chest with a bat logo, which will eventually lead to their deaths in prison, as those crimes aren't tolerated in the workhouse. So the concept exists in reality and fiction. In the 1200s, England required bread makers, goldsmiths, and silversmiths to put their marks on goods, primarily to ensure the honesty in measurement of their goods. So if you were dishonest about the measurement of your goods, this made it easy to trace it back to you. In the medieval times, printers also used marks and paper marks um, as watermarks and various other craft guilds. This is where the word trademark originated from. Specialist craftsmen created identifying devices like cylinder seals and seal rings. So when you're trademarking your logo, just think about all these medieval lot. Let's go back to modern times. Look at the Americans and their college dorms. I still can't believe they share rooms, by the way. They're moving like it's prison. Anyway, fraternities and sororities like in Neighbours or Stomp the Yard, they have pledges branded on them during their initiation as a form of identification and bonding, which is also known as hazing. I can't imagine the pain, but that would most definitely hurt more than getting a tattoo. There's a lot of trauma and learned behavior to unpack there. And I'm so sorry to make this dark, but slave owners would use a branding iron to brand slaves' palms, shoulders, cheeks, and buttocks. So yeah, America, that place is tapped because that's what they're doing there. Union America is not the one. But yeah, since we're here, branding of livestock is a technique of marking livestock in order to identify the owner. This goes all the way back to ancient Egyptians around 2000 BC, and archaeologists have found evidence of advertising among the Babylonians dating back 3000 BC. So there's literally 5000 years of literal branding. Oh yeah, and speaking of Egypt, if you're not watching Moon Knight on Disney Plus, you're missing out because we get to see the great Oscar Isaac pull off a British accent. There's not a lot of American actors that can do that. But anyway, I digress. Among the ancient Romans, the symbols used for brands were sometimes chosen as a part of a magical spell aimed at protecting animals from harm. Jackals, maybe. Mink wink. And all the talk of all this meat is making me crave some steak and wine. Yeah. But anyway, the last point on iron branding, then I'm done. So yeah, fun fact, hot branding is not practiced on dairy cattle in the UK. Why? Because under the Agriculture Act of 1968, hot branding is now prohibited. The UK practices freeze branding, which is less painful to cattle and causes minimal damage. There's also a bunch of other benefits, but that's irrelevant right now. And finally, in the 13,000 BC, the marks were used on potteries Porcelain in China, Greece, Rome, and India. Back to Japan in the Kamakura period, where Japan was ruled by the shogun, which is basically the military commander, like how Obasanjo was the Nigerian president and military leader. Anyway, Japan had many families that used crests to identify their families and clans. These crests were called kamon. Play Ghost of Tsushima if you want to learn more, but can't be bothered to research it. But yeah, the same way in Europe, the coat of arms identifies you as an individual, while in Japan, or should I say Nippon Koku, the land of the rising sun, the kamon represents a house, which is basically a family. These symbols and colors combinations, they acted as identification on battlefields. So the main reason for branding back then were to ensure honesty, to provide quality assurance, to identify the source or ownership, to hold producers responsible, to differentiate goods as a form of identification, and to create emotional bonding. These are pretty much the reasons people invest in brands today. A lot of brands like Supreme have taken it to the extreme and built a cult following, but looking at history has provided some good insight and perspective on modern day branding. Like I said before, branding and marketing are two sides of the same coin. And back in '02, most retailers they didn't even have a proper marketing department. And if they did, the department was responsible for things like store opening launch parties. In terms of marketing, the UK has been setting pace for the rest of the world. Retailers like Tesco, Waitrose, and Sainsbury's started hiring marketers from their suppliers like Unilever and P&G. They made private labeling a thing. There's a reason why you wouldn't mind buying a Tesco version of a certain household item or food. Now there's so many branded options for consumers. Consumer, consumer. The average Western consumer is exposed to a total sum of 3,000 brand messages a day. 3K a day. And McDonald's are leading the pack in marketing despite being one of the biggest companies and brands in existence. So if you think you're doing branding without marketing, anime share, temi shalom. So now that we know our history, now it is time to implement this knowledge and understanding and explain your workings. Okay, I'm going to tell you how you can find a good logo designer and how to test your logo. Okay, so you've already decided you want to invest in the well designed logo for your brand. And let's just assume you're not initiated in the advanced techniques of branding. So how do you find a good logo designer? So first question you should be asking yourself is, am I ready to commit to this process that will lay the foundations and fundamental values of my brand, or at the very least, the brand's reputation? If you are ready, steady, get, then the next step to find a logo designer. And notice I didn't say graphic designer, logo designer. Well, it's just something that you want to make sure you're really differentiating, because you want to get someone who actually specializes in logo design, yeah, not just general design. So here are some stats to think before you go through this process. Number one, it only takes consumers 10 seconds to form a first impression of the brand's logo. 10 seconds, and they've made a decision about your brand's logo. 10. But it takes 5 to 7 impressions for the consumer to recognize your logo. So they need to interact with your logo 5 to 7 times before it becomes recognizable. So marketing needs to be key. Number 2, color is a huge factor in brand recognition. A signature color can increase brand recognition by 80%. Brands like Starbucks do it well because they're green. How many coffee shops do you know are green? I can't think of any. When I think of green and I think coffee, Starbucks comes to mind immediately. Number 3, 90% of purchasing decisions are made subconsciously. Deep it. Your subconscious has already made a decision whether they're going to buy a brand or not. That's mad. So bear that in mind when you're thinking about designing your logo, okay? This is why logo design can range from things like, it can range from anything from £5 to 1 million, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's subjective. So ask yourself, is the logo I'm about to make, is it worth less than my Jordan 1s or Telfar bag? Yeah, ask that. You ask yourself that question. I would suggest looking at brands with good logos, and yeah, you know what to look for. Trust me, because good design works. Um, when you're looking for a logo designer, my thing, or let's say you're looking for a brand with a good logo, I would suggest you check their social media accounts or websites because they usually follow. They're somehow linked to the designer or agency that did the logo for them. They're usually following each other. It's worth a shot anyway. Alternatively, you can also just do the good old hashtag search, on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, that sort of thing. There are a lot of independent designers displaying their work on social media now. And if that's a bit too ghetto, then try websites like Guru, Upwork, or and freelancers. But I'm pretty sure you're gonna pay a pretty penny. Another one that people use now is Fiverr, but you have to be initiated. You can just fumble yourself if you go on Fiverr and not know what you're looking for. But anyway, once you find a logo designer, make sure you do the following. Follow instructions, okay? Follow my instructions to the T. Share some examples of what you like. And since you won't know the technical design terms to explain your vision, create a mood board on Pinterest. This will work best for this scenario. Next, you need to make sure you're giving good and quality descriptive feedback. And remember, just write down simplicity is best. Do what the winners in your industry are doing. Before you pay your deposit for your logo design as well, yeah, remember to ask these questions. If your designer gives you nonsense answers, they're not the person you should be working with. Number one, ask them what is a realistic timeline for your project. But remember, don't be tapped and think you're gonna ask a designer to design a logo for a 72-hour delivery. Don't come on, use your brain. Like, we have things to do in it. But ask them what their ideal time frame will be. I'm gonna just say a decent time frame shouldn't be anything more than, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, could be done quicker, but I'm just gonna say 4 to 6 weeks. Personally, in my opinion, anyway. Take it how you want. Number two, second question you should ask: how do you prefer to communicate? Some people like my WhatsApp, iMessage, FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meets. Some people like meeting in person. It's just a helpful thing to know and ask the frequency and the method of your communication during the process. Because if you're belling off the designer's line, but there's someone who likes to communicate via email, that is going to really stress this business relationship that you're trying to foster. Okay? So find that out at the beginning. Number three, ask them, what is your experience in our particular industry? Now, I understand the struggle of finding a designer that will work well. But sometimes we find designers who haven't really had experience designing for our industry. For example, you're trying to start a restaurant business, but you found a logo designer who's only done logos for, I don't know, eyelashes. And businesses that do hair extensions. It's not really the same thing. So you don't have much when they don't have much experience, you're going to need to educate them on the nuances of your particular business. Okay. Number four. Now, only ask this question if you want to be annoying, but ask them, what is your creative process? Someone like me, I used to be a night owl. I used to, stay up really late. So for designers like that, don't expect handovers at the end of a business day, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. That's when they're just starting. Okay, so it'd be good to know, but again, it's an annoying question because you don't need to know. What services are included in your fee? This is a very good question. This is a technical question that should be included in. The answer should be included in a contract as well. Make sure you sign a contract. But anyway, don't make assumptions about what you're receiving, because then you're gonna end up in McDonald's. You're gonna be in big trouble afterwards. Ask them what services are included in the fee they're charging, and if they can't tell you what they're doing, then I don't think you should be doing it with them. Okay. Number six, how is copyright handled? Now, again, this is something that should be included in the contract, but it should be made abundantly clear who owns the rights to this logo that's been designed. It's best to cement these issues sooner rather than later because you don't want to end up down the line with a successful business and a designer that owns your logo. Because when they trademark it, you are going to be paying them hundreds of millions. Assuming you're that successful anyway. Number 7. Could you give me some references? Now, this question is for when you found a designer, but you're not really sure about how they work, or if you've had bad experiences in the past and you want to hear some, good and honest reviews. So you can either one, stalk their work and contact the clients that they've worked with and ask them how they are working with this designer, or you can you can be upfront and direct like a G and ask them who what clients they've worked with and if you can see the work they've done, and that will kind of inform your decision, I guess. Number 8, ask them, will you be working on your project personally? I will not be lying. There has been a time where I've outsourced work, and I know a lot of professional logo designers that do this as well. So if there's a logo designer whose work you like specifically, there is a small chance that someone else might be doing the work. So yeah, that'd be a question to know if you like that designer style specifically. Okay, ask them that. And the last but not least, ask them, what file formats will I receive? Because some of you are only taking JPEGs and PowerPoint formats for your logo, and yeah, they're just setting you up for failure. Your designer should be using a vector-based design software to create your logo. So from the jump, if they said they're designing your logo in Photoshop, you need to turn around and run because you're about to waste big money. Okay, they're using Bitmap and they should be using Vector. But I'm gonna explain what logo formats you should have and what they mean. So you should have a PDF, PNG, JPEG, EPS, CVG, and an AI. So to start off with PDF format is great for printing and web. A PNG format is a portable network graphic, which is essentially transparent. A JPEG is a joint photographic expert group, which is anything for web, so social media, online, whatever. EPS is a encapsulated PostScript, which is the gold standard for vector files, and you should have that. And SVJ is a scalable vector graphic, which is like it's mainly used on websites. And the AI is a Adobe Illustrator, which is most likely your source file, which you need, especially if you wanted to do things like logo animation. So once you've done and you got your logo, you're probably asking yourself, how do you know if it's good? Well, you need to do the 7-step Paul Rand logo test. You need to ask yourself 7 questions that should more or less be yes for it to be a success. So I'm going to go through them and explain what they are as well. Number 1, is the logo distinctive? So distinctive means unique and different from everything else. It stands out amongst the crowd and it isn't easily confused with others. Number 2, is it visible? Visible means noticeable or easily seen. Number 3, is it adaptable? Adaptability means that it works across numerous applications. For example, a t-shirt, a cup, online, a truck, and on a road sign or a billboard. You get the idea. Is it memorable? The goal of the logo is to be unforgettable so that when a person feels the need your business solves, basically, your logo comes to mind immediately. Number 5, is it universal? When a universal logo carries a consistent meaning to a diverse range of people, this is possibly the most difficult part of creating a logo because everyone is different. So how do global brands accomplish this? Google uses color. And last but not least, is it timeless? The biggest principle for remembering and crafting a timeless logo is not to use the latest trends for logos. So don't go and copy Trapstar or Balenciaga. You follow your hearts and follow what is working in the market, okay? Don't follow what is trending because you will ruin yourself and you have to rebrand later down the line. And yeah, so once you've asked all these questions, hopefully you've said yes to everything above. And yeah, hopefully anyway. And the final question is it simple? If the answer is yes to that question, then you're done. You can go forth and flourish with your brand. And yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about what happens if you have a bunch of no's, because all I'm gonna say is you've wasted your money. So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a risk, Sha. You have to take risks and prosper. Like codename Kids Next Door, TARP. Take risks and prosper. See, taking risk is a synonymous with youth. And as we get older, we tend to be more cautious in every aspect of life. And in turn, we stop taking too many risks. If you're looking at this from a black and white view, people take risks because they are overconfident in their abilities as a human. Yeah. An extreme example would be like, I don't know, standing on the edge of a cliff to jump into water and being self-aware enough to know that there's a low chance. It's low, but there's still a chance you could fall and bang your head and the rocks and then get swept away by the waves because you're unconscious while being trapped under debris, like some Final Destination thing. Okay, that was a bit extreme, but you get what I mean. If you're going to be successful in life, you have to take risks. The current system laid out for you by the government is for you to work till you die. So if you would like to escape the rat race and take a leap of faith, you have to take risks. You're going to fail a lot in the process, but it doesn't matter. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshines and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it'll beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. And you, me, or nobody's gonna hit hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now if you know what you're worth, go out there and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits. And not pointing fingers and saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him, her, or anybody. Cowards do that and that ain't you. You're better than that. Okay, I went on a tangent there. But yeah, even though you're risking it for a biscuit, remember to stay authentic and true to yourself. And please, 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 don't get lost in the stew. And lastly, don't take risks without post-nut clarity, especially if you're not a level-headed person. Thank me, Leo. I've been the branding connoisseur. I remember nothing is impossible. This was the history of branding, and thank you for listening. Bye!